Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. If you have any questions today, please add them to the chat box or wait until the Q&A at the end of the presentation to ask. Otherwise, without further ado, it's an absolute honor to introduce you, Jordan. Jordan, take it away.
Hey guys, my name is Jordan. I'm an occupational therapist. I specialize in pediatrics, and I'm just really excited to be here with you guys today. I have a little bit to share. We're going to talk a little bit about this whole thing that we call picky eating and the meltdowns that kind of are associated with them. So, I'm going to give you a couple of resources. I'm going to give you some real-time solutions, strategies, things that we can put into action right away. So, I'll tell you a little bit about me, and I should hop right into it because I know you guys are busy and I just want to acknowledge you for taking time out of your day to be here with us because I know you have other things to do. I know that you have family to take care of and jobs and life. So I'm not going to take much of your time, but I'm going to give you as much information as I can in this short window. So let's just rock and roll, right? I'm going to let you know that, of course, I am an occupational therapist, like I said, but these are the things that you're going to learn by being here today. My goal and my hope for your takeaway is to really understand why our kids are having meltdowns in the first place, right? Like that's why you're here. That's the title of this presentation. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about some of those unseen red flags also. These are things that you might not be aware of. And then all of a sudden these meltdowns happen and you're like, where did this come from? Well, I'm going to give you some tools to see what you can't see, right? The next thing we're going to talk about is some therapy strategies you can take into action in real time because believe it or not, I'm a dad with a severely picky eater and that's how I got into this whole thing. I didn't really have experience or a drive to be a pediatric OT or to really serve picky eaters until I had one of my own and I needed to figure it out. So I want to help families that are struggling just like I was. And that's my real passion is to be here today. And then of course, you're going to get some takeaways, things that we can do in real time that is going to make your life easier, okay? So I'm not really sure why you showed up, but if you did, these might be some of the reasons, right? Maybe you're frustrated with doctors not giving you the answers that you're looking for to help your little ones. I know that was me. That was my experience personally. Sometimes we're just fed up with the fighting during meals. It just doesn't seem to go away. And I'm going to give you the strategies to assist you. And then, of course, you're probably dealing with meltdowns and you want some tips, some tricks, some real strategies that are going to work, not just some fluff that we heard on social media that maybe worked one time and then never worked again, right? That's what we're going to avoid. So realistic things that are going to make an impact. And you see this icon over here, this little logo, the Full Belly Club. I'm the founder of the Full Belly Club. I founded the Full Belly Club out of a need, a necessity to change the way feeding therapy is done because I was being underserved. I realized I wasn't getting the help I needed, hence the Full Belly Club, right? I wanted to do something different, and you're going to see more of it. So there are really two things that I'm going to give you little freebies, little rewards for hanging out with me, right? So you're going to get two real strategies that I use in the Full Belly Club every day in the clinic that I work at, as well as the virtual support that we offer. Okay. The first thing is going to be these pre-mealtime Olympics. It's almost like my high overview of how we drain that energy battery so our kids are more receptive to participate with us during meals. The second thing that we're going to talk about is the traffic light approach to setting up your plate, meaning there's a way that we can help our kids be less overwhelmed from their visual systems so that we'll eat, so that we'll take that first bite. Sometimes that barrier to entry is the visual system that we just see something we're not really friendly with, we're not really familiar with, and we're averse to. So addressing the visual system is the first step to getting our kids to number one, eat more, try more variety of foods, more diversity of foods, and the quantity of foods. Okay, so those are your two freebies. So hang out with me for a bit. Okay, so who am I? Why am I even talking to you? Well, Like I said, my name is Jordan, and I am the founder of the Full Belly Club. I have a master's degree in occupational therapy and activity analysis, a bachelor's degree in health science, another bachelor's degree in bioscience. Yes, I like school. I have almost about 10 years of experience as an occupational therapist and 6 specific years focused as feeding therapist. So I got into the picky, selective eating world because of my son, and then a pseudo picky eater because of my daughter. So I live this every day like you do. I'm not just some therapist that's learned some things in school. I had to come up with my own strategies because I didn't have any. And me, I originally worked with adults in physical disabilities and repetitive strain injuries. So I actually own a company serving adults, and I gave it all up so that I can be here with pediatrics because that's really where my passion is. That's where I'm motivated to be, and that's how I want to help as many parents as I can that were struggling like I was. So that's who I am, and that's what I'm about. So I'm a dad trying to help other parents. That's my story. Where I was, maybe you can relate to this. I know for me, I was being gaslit by not only my doctor, who was my doctor, long story short, right? The pediatric doctor, the pediatrician I was working with, literally made me feel less than, made me feel like I didn't know what to do, made me feel like a bad parent, and my wife even worse. These are things on the screen that you might have already heard from your pediatrician, right? Maybe you need to stand your ground, or just keep pushing food, or just keep offering foods, or that your kid is underweight and they need to eat more. Well, I've been there and I've tried to feed my kid more and it doesn't always work. That's where the meltdowns come in, right? That's where the stress as a parent comes in. I remember distinctly my doctor, my pediatrician, telling me that my son had failure to thrive. I'm a occupational therapist, and I knew that was BS. I knew it wasn't true. But when my wife heard that, she works in a law field. She doesn't know. So she immediately started to internalize the guilt, the stress, the anxiety. And it was literally crumbling the foundation of her ability to be a good mom. Her strength to know that she could do it was literally eroding beneath her, and it was affecting her mental health. And it was hard, man. And I am the first one to say, I'll admit, I let her go down the rabbit hole. I let her start doing her research. She found a registered dietitian where we ended up paying $2,000 for this woman to literally tell us things that I already knew, to waste our time and to lead us down a rabbit hole with no real direction. And I don't want that to be you. I want you to learn from my mistakes and take advantage of the resources that are already available to you. And you don't have to pay somebody an exorbitant amount of money to get something that you are deserving. Okay. So I'm going to talk about some caregiver roles in feeding therapy, which gets glossed over so frequently. The roles in feeding therapy is a balance of the masculine and feminine energies. And this is what I had to learn from myself. No dietitian was going to be able to tell me what I needed to help my kid overcome or undo like this picky eating behavior, because there's really two perspectives. There's the sensory behavioral approach, and then there's the biomechanical approach, right? Not actually being able to hold a utensil, motor plan a utensil to our mouth, and then the fear, stress, and anxiety that's associated with the behavioral component. So we're going to break this down. When I think of caregiver roles, it doesn't matter if you're a parent, a grandparent, a foster parent. If you're a caregiver, these are the two energies we need to balance. The masculine energies of the playfulness, the trying new things, the building the confidence and through affirmations and coping skills. And then the feminine energy of balancing the emotional stress that comes along with trying new things, going outside of our box, getting outside of the norm, right? So the feminine energy is where we find that comfort and support. The masculine energy is where we get silly and we get playful and we kind of get our kids outside of the box. Okay, so I want to establish these two roles and these two energetic frequencies because they are different and our kids need both. So dad has a role in feeding therapy, dad has a role in therapy. And when so often our dads are left out of the equation is where we're missing a huge piece of the puzzle because mom can't do it on her own and she shouldn't. And it should has to be a team effort. Okay. Now I want to make that clear at the beginning. This isn't on one person. It's a family approach on new roles, new routines, and new strategies that I want to give you. Okay. So meltdowns. Let's get right into it. There are short-term triggers and long-term triggers. Knowing the difference between the two are going to give you the strategies of knowing what to do and why. All right. So take a deep breath. We're going to do this and it's going to be good. It's going to be easy. And I'm going to show you, walk you through it. Okay, here we go. So short term, long term. When we talk about short term triggers for meltdowns, we're talking about screen time, number one. That is the biggest trigger I see. What happens with this is I'm going to say quick. The TV activates the limbic system in our brain. When it gets activated, we're activating a specific thing that you might be familiar with called the fight or flight response. Once our kids are watching TV and you try to transition them TV off, screen time off, iPad's done, or going to the table, our kids already melting down. That is not going to make eating any easier, right? I know, I bet you guys are shaking your head saying, oh, yep, I can relate. So then we have to talk about what are we going to do about screen time? We're going to get there. Don't worry. Talk about high energy levels. We have two different types of picky eaters we're going to get into. The high energy levels play a huge role. The fear is a huge component here, and we're going to talk more about that. Slight changes to the food, whether it be taste, texture, or the way the food looks, is going to make an impact in the short term, right? Visual overwhelm is going to be another version of short-term triggers. We're going to get into that in one of the freebies, right? The thing I told you about the traffic light approach, we'll get there. Transition issues, emotional and sensory dysregulation. If we're not regulated in our bodies, then we're going to have a hard time. I always talk about the 3-level brain. Our higher level brain, which is the logical brain, to use coping skills, to be rationalized with, to understand that this is a short-term stressor and I'm going to be able to overcome it. Then there's the emotional brain, right? When our sensory systems are not regulated, meaning we'll get into that more of like the unseen the unseen senses, like vestibular and proprioception and interoception. Those are the ones that we don't talk about, right? That's not the hearing, the smell, the touch, the taste. These are different. These are the ones that you're not taught as a young child or in school. So we have to make sure those senses are regulated. And if they're not, you're going to be in that emotional brain. And then once we start melting down, these kids are seeing red, boom, they're dropping down into the survival brain. And these are all tied into the short-term triggers for meltdowns for the emotional and sensory dysregulation. So we need to regulate those things. And I'm going to show you how with the Mealtime Olympics. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit of long-term triggers. If we're talking long-term, we're talking trauma. Maybe we choked on a specific food, right? I'm working with a kid right now who choked on a peanut butter cracker and how he can't even be around peanut butter now. The sight of peanut butter, the smell of peanut butter forces him to gag, right? So we have to overcome traumas. That might be a long-term trigger. Conditioned behaviors, things that have happened over time with you as a caregiver at the dinner table. Well, he or she may know they're coming to the table and are already starting to melt down because of the past experiences. So we need to overcome that trigger. We have to talk about motor planning, right? There are 3 pillars for eating, and that's bite strength, tongue control, lip control. These are motor planning issues that we have that we need to overcome if we're having some issues. And some of the tricks that can be, can your child blow a bubble? Can they blow through a horn or a whistle? Can they blow up a balloon? Can they blow through a straw? And if they can't, boom, we got red flags. We have motor planning issues that we need to work through. Okay. We're going to talk about these dysregulation of the long-term sensory systems, right? These sensory systems are a short and long-term issue that need to be addressed. We'll talk about weak core muscles. This is one of the one of the two types of picky eaters we have. Sometimes we have weak core muscles and we physically can't even sit in the chair. Okay. Then we talk about GI distress. GI distress is an emerging research area for specifically children that are suffering with autism. And we need to talk more about that in depth, but I just don't have time right now. So, as a side note, we're going to talk about the long term triggers for GI distress. This is my email, jordan@thefullbellyclub.com. Please send me an email. Tell me what you got going on, and I will send you a booklet of resources and literature based in the GI distress for autism. Okay. Really, what it has to do with is GI inflammation that leads to what we call leaky gut. Okay. And that leaky gut affects our cognition, it affects the symptoms of autism, and it when it's addressed, we see a lot of the negative symptoms reduce as well as the feeding issues. So again, I'm going to show you this email again later, but side note, not going to go too much into it now, okay? So let's talk a little bit about these two types of picky eaters. You're not going to see this anywhere else. Okay, I'm going to tell you that right now. I've been a therapist for, like I said, a decade. I've been focusing on picky eating for the last 6 years, starting because of my own son. So I've come up with these two different perspectives of picky eaters, right? There's the rigid sensory defensive picky eater, and then there's the flexible sensory seeker. Okay. Like I said, this is terminology you won't see outside of this presentation because I came up with it because I needed a way to articulate to parents what was happening with their kids. Okay. When we talk about the rigid sensory defensive picky eater, we're talking about fear. It's all fear based. It comes from lack of trust, whether it's in themselves, whether it's in the caregiver they're with, or whether it's in the food. We have trust issues. We have usually low self-esteem. We have low self-confidence. And these kiddos are hypercritical of themselves. They'll do something, they'll get angry that they couldn't do it right the first time, or they weren't doing it the way they wanted to do it, or it didn't occur the way they thought it would happen. Boom, internalizing it. These kids are also really not open to trying new things, right? Getting outside of their routines or their norms. So when you're not able to try new things on the average, we're looking for control. They're trying to control their outside environment. And when they can't control things, what can you control? Food. What goes in your mouth. So these kids become picky eaters because they're trying to control their outside environment. And because they can't control it, they're controlling the one main thing they can, and that's food. Right? So a lot of parents hear that and they say, whoa, okay, they're looking for control. Then we talk about the the flexible sensory seeker. Now, these are kids that are just always moving. They can't seem to sit still. I don't care if you want to slap a diagnosis on them. These are the signs and the symptoms we hear and see. High energy levels. My kid is running around. He's never sitting still. He's got FOMO, fear of missing out on whatever it might be. It might be the leaf blower in the background. It might be the garbage truck. It might be dad's going to take out the trash and they have to be there. They have to go see it. They never want to miss out on anything. They're constantly trying to leave whatever activity is adult driven to go do their own play. If you're trying to gear them to the table to eat, they're trying to leave to go play because they just never finished playing with that toy. So we're talking about transitioning issues as well, right? And when they do sit, they can't really sit for more than 10 minutes. Sitting for 10 minutes is a hallmark of weak core muscles, right? We said that before. When we physically can't hold ourselves up against gravity, we're fidgeting, we're moving, we're wiggling. That's the next bullet, right? We can't physically stay in one place. So then the question comes down to this. what's actually missing from most feeding therapy. I know when I went down the rabbit hole, my pediatrician never even offered for a referral for feeding therapy. Okay, that's the first mistake. Is I ended up having going down the rabbit hole. My wife finding someone literally, she was from Canada and a dietitian, and I don't even know. This is all during COVID, so it's like I went down the rabbit hole of not even getting what I needed as a therapist, and I don't want that to be you. So the thing that's missing out of the most feeding therapy is going to surprise you because it's so simple. It's a plan, a structured plan that you can rinse and repeat and continue to use over and over. When you succeed with one food, we go to the next food, and so on and so forth, over and over and over. And this might sound obvious, but to me, in where I was and stressed and overwhelmed, and I just had a new baby at the time, this was not on my radar, right? It only came to my radar when I needed to figure it out for myself. So the structured plan is what it's all about. And if you've ever had feeding therapy before, you might realize that, oh, my feeding therapist might just watch me feed my kid and not really give me any recommendations, but say, you're doing a great job, keep going, keep offering foods. But like you really feel like you're in the dark, you're not sure what to do next. Yeah, I can relate. So let's talk about it. Let's give you the strategies right now to avoid mealtime meltdowns and undo this thing that we call picky eating. Okay. The first two things that I'm going to talk about are training the energy battery. That's what we have to do no matter what. And that's where these mealtime Olympics come in. Talk about this traffic light approach for setting up your plate. That's going to be the next thing. But I have to tell you, 30 minutes to an hour before meals, no screen time. Hard stop. I get it. I have two kids. I have a 6-year-old now, and I have a 4-year-old. I'm going to tell you that I understand you need to get dinner ready. You need to start doing your nighttime routine. I call it the turn down in my home. Right? We need to get ready for the next day, but we have to put them on something that's going to help keep their interest. Whether we're building blocks, we're using magnet tiles, we're drawing, we're doing something that is not screen time. 30 minutes to an hour before meals. Number one, to assist your transition, but number two, so we're not activating that fight or flight response in our brain that's going to make your life way harder. Okay. The next thing we're going to talk about are mealtime games. What are we going to do during meals to make it more fun, more interesting, and playful? Because play is the work of kids. If you want your kids to learn something new, to overcome a trauma or an issue, or just kind of like go with the flow a little bit more, if you have a really rigid kid, is play. It has to be funny. It has to be silly. And the sillier you are, the easier everything is going to be. The last thing on here that you see are coping skills. Our kids need to know how to activate coping skills even at a young age. 2 or 3 years old is early enough to start using coping skills. And what I mean by that is mostly a backup plan. What is the backup plan that you're going to do to help your kid in real time? Maybe they want to try a new food. They're not sure. They're fearful of that food, right? It's going to be boiled down to fear. How are we going to get them over the hump to feel comfortable, confident, and to take that next step? Okay. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is this traffic plate approach, this traffic light plate approach, whatever you want to say. It's talking about preferred foods, non-preferred foods, and semi-preferred foods. And we use this visual guide, red, yellow, green. Make it easy for you. Okay. If you've ever had feeding therapy or you've ever heard a feeding therapist talk about a food inventory, this is directly correlated to your food inventory. If you had feeding therapy and you never had a food inventory, first red flag. That therapist not really knowing what they're doing, unfortunately. So when I talk about red foods, right, I'm talking about non-preferred foods or brand new foods that we're taking from the food inventory food wish list. That are the foods that you want to incorporate into the diet. It's as simple as that. Okay. The trick is these have to be foods that are culturally and family appropriate. These are foods that you eat in your everyday life. Like, you're not going to try and get this kid to eat sushi if you don't eat sushi. You're not going to try and get this kid to eat eggplant if you don't eat eggplant, right? It has to be culturally and family appropriate. But I strongly encourage you to try flavor profiles outside of your current cultural norms. For example, I live in Georgia. I'm in Johns Creek. There's a heavy Indian influence in our area. So we started trialing flavor profiles. And guess what my son really likes? Warm flavors, the cinnamons, and the warmer profiles that Indian food has. So we've been highly successful in transitioning across cultures. So experimentation and play, food exploration is so important. Okay. Talk about yellow foods, the semi-preferred foods. These are foods that we'll eat, 50% of the time, give or take, and they're taken from the food inventory. Okay. The green foods are our go foods. These are our foods we're going to get into all the time that our kids are going to really enjoy. They're going to like. You're going to use those as a belly primer. So I don't know if you've ever heard this term. Belly primers are foods that we use to get the engine running, get that hunger cycle activated, okay? We want to activate this hunger cycle. So what I'll do sometimes is I'll put a little, for any of our picky eaters, right, in the clinic, out of the clinic, I'll put a really super preferred food. I love apples. Apples are one of my favorite because they're crunchy. They give you that tactile input. They're sweet. Like 3 slices of thin apples, right? That's all we have in front of us. We eat those 3 apples. We sit for a second. We bring the plate of food to them next. This is a super effective approach where they don't visually get overwhelmed and they feel comfortable like it's on their own terms. Okay? It's powerful. So here's an example. This is an over exaggerated example. On the left, you're going to see an appropriate plate. Small portions divided. There's actually a food chaining going on here. Food chaining is a strategy that we use that has to do with the same texture, the same color, the same size of the items, food items, right? You can see there's a single tomato. That single tomato is a red food. We have the least preferred foods on the plate next to the strawberries. We're bridging from the chain, from the strawberry to the tomato. I didn't make these images, I sourced them, but I would have probably cut that tomato. So it was also cut so we have more flavor profile rather than that the surface tension of the tomato skin. Would be a barrier to entry. So I would even probably cut that in half so it looks more similar. On the right side, you're going to see just this overwhelmed plate of food that looks overwhelming to me, and that's why I gave it to you, right? This is just an over exaggeration, but to give you the idea of what they feel like when it's even just like regular food. You would say, oh yeah, this is just a regular set up plate, but to them it's visually overwhelming. Too many choices, too many colors, the portions are too large. That's a huge issue. We give our kids too much food. Let them ask for seconds rather than overloading them with food that you think that they're going to eat all of it, because the visual system is a huge barrier we need to overcome. Okay. It's a big deal. So the more we can overcome it, the better you're going to be. When we talk about number 2, we talk about these mealtime Olympics, right? I have these divided into 3 sections because we need some therapy strategies in play and we disguise them as play, right? We're disguising therapy as play. We're starting with heavy work. We're draining that battery, whether we're doing like a tug of war, a kid wheelbarrow, any pushing, pulling, lifting, things that are heavy, right? We want to drain that energy battery. Then we want to come down to baseline, helping them regulate their system so they're not coming into the table wiling out, right? So we're going to use those unseen symptoms, those vestibular, those proprioceptive systems to cool down, right? Maybe we make a kid sandwich and we're pressing them with pillows. Maybe we're rolling them in a blanket. We're giving them some pressure. We're calming them with a kid burrito. Maybe we're linearly going back and forth on the swing to calm And then the next step is going to be the oral motor exercises. We're doing a little bit of strengthening. We're doing a little bit of motor planning of the tongue, of the lips, right? We need to activate these muscles so that eating will be easier. So like, for example, you might see our kiddo try apples. And when he chews on the apples, they chew them and then they'll spit them out. And the reason is because they don't have the tongue control to lateralize the food, to move to the molars, and then to sweep back to swallow. So the texture is gritty, or it's just like minced tiny little pieces, and they can't control it, or they don't like the texture of it, so it gets spit out. So doing these exercises will help improve their ability to eat different textures and foods. Okay. I like to end with a little hand wash, kind of as a significant, like, okay, we're washing our hands, we're changing the location, we're transitioning to the meal, transitioning to the table. Okay. So these are two super powerful strategies I teach every single parent in the clinic, in the Full Belly Club, and it works, man. So I guess the real question is this: how do parents undo picky eating? Well, it's pretty easy. It's the parents' playbook for picky eaters. Like, we need a plan. We need a structured guide. We need something we can rinse and repeat, right? Because if you're here, most likely you don't have that, and neither did I. So I guess the real question is, why do you even have a playbook? And then my answer to that is, why wouldn't you have a playbook? There's a playbook for how to learn new skills. What are we going to do in sports? The real question is, why isn't there a standard playbook for helping parents? And that's what I came up with. I came up with something that you won't have to worry or think of what if. You'll know step by step. You won't have to make your backup meals when you go into birthday parties or group community events and have that judgment of maybe family or friends, usually it's like mother-in-laws. I hate to say that, but why are you doing it like that? Why don't you force him to eat? Why don't you push him to eat more? And I always say, don't you think I already am trying that? Most parents aren't sitting on the sidelines twiddling their thumbs. They're doing their best, and it creates stress. It creates anxiety. It creates the guilt that we all feel as parents, right? When they're stuck in these bland or tan diets and we know they're not getting the nutrients that they need, and we start feeling it. Right? So I want you to have this playbook so you don't get these questions. You feel more self-confident as a parent because I was there. I was in your shoes and I know exactly what it's like. Okay? So these are the 7 steps that I came up with as a feeding therapist and a dad to help other parents just like me. Okay. It starts with the food inventory. It transitions into our feeding log so we can collect data because it's all data driven. We need to know more about the food play. This is where we build our tolerances with our sensory systems and our oral motor exercises. We have specific sensory guidelines, what to do before you even get to the table, right? These mealtime Olympics to drain these energy batteries, specific mealtime games to make eating more fun and play based, because that's what really matters. It has to be play based. And then we talk about the food, taste, and texture vocabulary. This is something you probably never even heard of because I realized after working with hundreds of kids that these kids don't know how to relate to foods. These abstract, yum, yuck, ew, they mean nothing. Kids can't relate to that. So we need to build concrete comprehension of the foods that we like so that we can bridge that verbiage to the new foods and use our logical brain and rationalize. Okay. So really the only thing that you need to get started inside the Full Belly Club is the parents playbook with a real plan. And like, no joke, having a plan is going to change your entire life. It will change your routines. It will change your roles. It will change how you view this rather than being stressful and frustrated and literally resenting the meal time. You're going to have strategy, you're going to have the confidence, and you're going to know what to do. So, I mean, you've been on the call already for 35 minutes. So you're sitting here knowing that I want to change, I want to do something, and I believe in you. I believe that you can make a change. If you're sitting here on this call, taking time out of your day, you can do something right now. And you already got 2 strategies that will work for you tonight. Okay? Start with the mealtime pre-Olympics. Start with the plate. Put less on the plate. Start with a belly primer. These are things that are make your life easy. And that's all I want for you. I want to help you the way I wasn't helped as a parent. Okay? So my most important thing is this isn't fluff. This isn't stuff that I just made up out of thin air. Like, oh, this is a nice idea. No. I came up with these things out of experience and trial and error. Okay. These are the things that we need to be more aware of. So if we can identify as a caregiver more triggers, symptoms, then we can help our kiddos in real time and just empower ourselves to know what to do, how to do it, and undo this thing we call picky eating, because it is a behavior. It's a behavior that we need to overcome because of personalities. If you know that you have a rigid personality, trying new things is not going to be easy. So we're going to control the one thing that we can control, and that's the food. That's what we put in our bodies, because the more we push as caregivers to eat, take a bite, take a bite, take a bite, the more they're going to fight and the more they're not going to. So it's about taking small steps. It's about taking the baby steps. It's about taking a deep breath and regulating yourself as a parent. We can't get angry. We can't get mad. We have to keep it light, keep it playful, and take baby steps. But you have to take action and you have to make a step forward, because if you don't take your step forward, you're never going to change and you're going to be right where you are now. And that's not what I want for you. I want you to get on this other side of picky eating, because I'm going to tell you right now, I have a 6-year-old. This started from almost day one with we had to transition away from breastfeeding. It was a whole thing. And I was able to figure out for my own son that he had tongue control issues, the lingual control. He couldn't move his tongue. So we saw speech delays associated with the picky eating. So you might be seeing that also. So, like I said, none of this is fluff. None of this is going to waste your time. These are the foundations of feeding therapy that most therapists, unfortunately, don't even know. All right. So I'm going to give you the head up. What's next is the real question for you, right? Where are you going to go with this information? I'm going to tell you what wasn't told to me. Insurance will cover feeding therapy. I work at a clinic called Kids Therapy Networks. I live here in Georgia. I live in Johns Creek, right? We serve the Gwinnett County, the Fulton County, the Johns Creek and Suwannee areas in person and virtually. So we even serve people all over the state with virtual telehealth feeding therapy. I'm going to tell you right now, 80% of pediatric therapy should be caregiver education. The once or twice a week we see your kiddo isn't enough to make change. What makes a change is what happens at home. Okay, so I love telehealth. I do telehealth all the time because I get more one-on-one with the parents than I do in the clinic. When we get into the clinic, sometimes it's okay. We bring the kid back. We play detective. We tell you what to do at home. But if we could do telehealth, we can rationalize, we can problem solve, we can plan for the next session even more. So I believe telehealth is very good for feeding therapy because I can give more caregiver education to build the confidence and empower you to make a long-term change. Because let me tell you, if you don't make the routine change, nothing will change, right? So on the bottom, you can either send me an email if you want to learn more about insurance paying for your therapy, or you can call the number below. The number is directly to the clinic here in Johns Creek, and it's just going to make an impact for you. You can Google us, you can find us on Google Maps, right? Like everybody else does. It's going to be super powerful for you. And some of the keywords that you're going to use for your doctor is going to say, my kid has a low variety of foods in his diet. My kid has a hard time managing his emotions, is constantly having meltdowns. My kid is really rigid. My kid has sensory seeking behaviors. These are going to be red flags. No pediatrician in their right mind is going to deny you care for your child if you're asking for it. Okay. So I'm going to throw that out there for you right now. Go to your pediatrician, advocate for your kid. If your pediatrician doesn't want to write you a script, that's probably not the right pediatrician for you. If your pediatrician is gaslighting you and making you feel less than or making you feel some type of way about your kid's not where you feel like they should, and they're pushing you that you need to do more, and you're trying your best, maybe they don't have the empathy and the bedside manner that you need. So I'm not telling you to leave your doctor and pediatrician, but I did, and I was much happier for it. Okay. So I'm going to leave it at that. You can go for a screenshot. You can write down the number. I'm going to leave it for one more second on the screen. Your insurance will cover your feeding therapy. Take advantage. Okay. The next thing I'm going to tell you about are mealtime games. How are you going to make your games, your time at the table, more fun? You're going to play games. You're going to play about it, really. That's really what it comes down to. So I created a bunch of different resources, and here are 3 of them. First one is the science challenge. A lot of kids like to feel like they're in control. They like to be little experimenters. So I created a guideline of the lead taste tester. Let's put these kids in line. Let's get them a goggles. Let's get them a set of goggles, a white coat, and a clipboard. Let's give them an opportunity to be in control and that driver's seat rather than restricting food for their sense of control. Let's empower these kids to give them a sense of control. Using a visual guide is super helpful also. You'll see it in the middle, right? It starts with the dinner Olympic challenge because kids love challenges, right? So the full belly club challenge. Can you make it? You want to challenge them. Can you do this? All right, we're going to do our Olympics. Boom, we're going to do a check off or put a sticker or we're going to put something there. Maybe I use stars, right? I love the token economy. So then we wash our hands. Then we help set the table. Then we do our first bite as a bite challenge. And then we continue through the process and keep them engaged and keep them motivated. Another thing is you see on the screen it says action card, backup plan, or food card, right? These are actually a mealtime card game that I created for my son. And it went so well that other therapists were asking for it. So I made a physical card game with all of the feeding strategies that we need and we talk about in the full belly club. So we talk about utilizing coping skills. We teach the coping skills through the card game, through play. We go through movement breaks to help our kids tolerate sitting better. We help build taste and texture vocabularies and the actual feeding exercises that are designed to help our kids, but disguised as play. We follow the SOS approach to feeding inside the Full Belly Club. So we follow up this hierarchy of tolerance and we do it in the game. So it's not you telling the kid to touch the food, to see the food, to touch the food, to smell the food, to lick the food, to kiss the food, to bite the food. It's the game. So you're not the enemy. You're not the problem, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa. You're on their team. Well, the card told us to do this. So the adults will do it. The older siblings will do it. The kid will do it last. We want to model the behavior. And this QR code that you see on the screen is going to bring you right to the game, right? So I always use this phrase, the death of the clean plate, rise of the full belly, right? Because the clean plate really came from the depression era of not wasting food. So instead of not wasting food, we're not really concerned about waste. I'm more concerned about building interoception, understanding the cues and the signs and the symptoms of I might fall. How does my body feel? Right? Because that's what matters the most. And so we'll use visuals to help our kids where I want you to do at home. Maybe it's you have a cup or you have 3 cups. You pour 1 cup with a little bit of water, 1 cup with a medium amount of water, and 1 full cup. And we correlate how full the cup is with how full their belly is. Sometimes you'll have to help them, maybe get their ball rolling of how to understand it. So we'll do a belly scan in my house and in the clinic. Let me scan your belly and see how full you are. And then we'll use a thumb measurement to guide. Are you empty? Are you half full? Or are you full all the way? Okay. This is a great way for our kids to be able to explain, I think I need more food, or I'm almost full, I need a top off. One thing we will not do is count the amount of bites, because you might get 2, 3, 4 more bites than you thought they were going to take, but you said, okay, only take one more. Not going to do that. We want to put it on them to understand. And that's what this Full Belly Club game is about. It is the game changer, pun intended, for feeding therapy. And I can't tell you how many people have made such an impact with this game. So I'm going to throw it out there for you. It makes a huge impact. Okay. So really the question is on you. What are you waiting for? Are you going to be in the club? Are you going to join the Full Belly Club so you can stop your mealtime battles, stop meltdowns, stop feeling guilty that your kids are just not eating, and finally bring your family back together? So I want to support you as much as I possibly can. We are building a community online, and we're starting to get ready for our beta program where we're actually going to have the teachings for parents and therapists to learn how to use these strategies so we can make it more attainable, make it more realistic, make it the norm. So people aren't left in the dust, left guessing what if, like I was. And that's what I want to avoid. I want to bring these families together so we know what to do, how to do it, and how to overcome the issues that we all deal with at the end of the day. So this is my email on the bottom. Feel free to email me. You have comments, you have questions, you have concerns. I'm here for you. Just because I'm not treating you as a patient, I'm happy to help you, right? Because no one was there to help me. And I don't want that for anybody, because that feeling of being alone, being on an island, is the worst thing I can ask. I wouldn't want that on my worst enemy, because I was there and I felt it. And in a time when we need community, breaking bread is a lost art in our culture where we don't get together over that meal and bond and connect. And I feel like that is something we need to bring back into our culture. Food should be fun. Food should be friendly. Food should give us what we need. And that's what it's all about. And that's what the Full Belly Club is about. Okay. So, man, I just want to say thank you to all of you that are coming here, either live or virtually. And my name is Jordan. I want to help you as much as I can. So here's my email one last time. Here's my social, the Full Belly Club. Find me on Instagram. Send me a message. Tell me what you thought about this presentation. You thought I did a good job? I want to hear about it. You think I could have worked or improved on some things? Talk about it too, because I am open to personal development and growing in every way I can. And I'm a lifetime student. So this is what I'm about. This is what I love to do. And I just get passionate about. So that's it, really. So I'm going to stop my screen from sharing real quick. Hello. I'm going to check the chat box. And if anybody has anything that they want to say or any questions, I'm here for you. So I can see thank you for the opportunity. Unfortunately, I have to log off. Thank you, Susan. We appreciate you. Thank you for being here. I have another question over here that I can see. And the question is, what if my kid is always getting angry before meals? So, well, if my kid is getting angry before meals, we need to look at the red flags. Why are they getting angry? Are we missing some of the subtle red flags that are already coming up? I mean, we need to look at the sensory systems. Are we dealing with the screen time a little bit too much before meals? Or do we have too much energy that we're running away, not able to control our emotions, right? So that's the first thing that I would just say. Condition behavior, address the conditioning first, make it fun, make it silly, put that food on your nose, put a napkin on your head like a hat, make them laugh. That laughter is your key to success. Now, I'm going to
Mhm.
open the floor to anybody that might want to ask a question
Thank
without the chat box.
Thank you,
thank-
Jordan. Any parents that want to unmute, please feel free to ask Jordan any questions while we have him. We have him for about 9 more minutes.
Yes, I do have a question. Thank you, Jordan, for your presentation. Definitely learned a lot. So I have a 2-year-old, very picky, and she hesitates to try new foods, refuses fruits and vegetables. And last night, for example, I put on her plate, I did, put a couple of a preferred item for her is meatballs. And then I put some fruits and vegetables and some other things. She finished the meatballs and then just kept saying more meatballs. And I was trying to get her to eat some of the other foods. She wouldn't even attempt it. Um, and so when I'm kind of in that standstill with her, do I just let it go and just say, okay, well, this is your opportunity to eat, and our next opportunity is tomorrow morning for breakfast, or do I kind of give in and just give her her favorite foods at that time? And how can I kind of handle that power struggle with her?
That's a great question. And you hit the nail on the head. It's a power struggle, in
Yeah.
truth. So, this is what I would suggest. We're talking about the traffic light approach to feeding, right? We want to have to start off. This is enough all the time. This is at the beginning. We want to have the most of the preferred foods, then we want to have the semi preferred, and then the preferred, right? So, what we're really going to do in this situation is you're going to say, okay, we can have more meatballs, but we're going to play a game. We're going to follow this hierarchy of engaging with the new foods. And you're going to reward her with the preferred food that she wants. So we're going to try to get her to touch the enter food, right? Whatever it was. Maybe it was a carrot, maybe it was a broccoli, maybe it was a zucchini, right? We're going to try to get her to touch it first. Will she touch it? If she'll touch it, we want to try to get her to smell it. If she's going to smell it, then we're going to try to get her to touch it to her nose, touch it to her face, maybe kiss it. If she's going to kiss it, then we're going to try to get her to lick it. If she's going to lick it, then we're going to try to get her to bite it. And we're going to use that preferred food almost as a reward system, if that makes sense. Or you can use what we call a token economy. So in my house and in our clinic, I use a star chart. And every time they take a bite or follow the hierarchy of first we see it, then we touch it, then we touch it to our face, then we smell it, then they'll earn a star, right? And this token economy will build their confidence to follow up the hierarchy. So we won't go into the power struggle. We're going to get silly about it. We're going to get playful about it. And if you can make it playful, you will disarm the power struggle that you're dealing with, and then you're going to give her the preferred food, because in truth the protein is our number one that we need. Then we start to get into the vegetables and the fruits. So we need to understand also, why is she not want to try them? Is she fearful of them, which is at a 2-year-old age? That's usually what we're seeing. We're seeing fear of the unknown, fear of, I don't know if I'm going to like that. So we want to heavily model the behavior of mommy's touching it to her nose, mommy's going to take a smell, your turn to take a smell, and make it silly and make it fun. And the funnier, sillier you can be, you're going to see that power struggle just dissolve. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
absolutely. For sure, for sure. And I'm going to throw this out there. The card game that we were talking about, really designed for 3-year-olds for to understand more of the direction following. So depending on how like cognitive at the cognitive level of your child is going to play a role. Like, how well are they following directions? How well are they understanding the concepts of soft, crunchy, and that taste and texture vocabulary is what you need to start building in now with the preferred foods. Ooh, this meatball is soft. Ooh, it's easy to take a bite of. Ooh, when I chew the meatball, it's easy to chew, it's easy to swallow. And then the same vegetable that's on your plate that you're trying to get her to engage with, keeping in mind, less is more. The visual overwhelm that our kids are going to experience by having multiple fruits, multiple non preferred foods on their plate is going to automatically make them break down, or shut down, rather. So start with one of the non preferred foods. So if you're like, I have 2 fruits and 2 vegetables, that's too much. So we need to come down to one non-preferred food, smaller and thinner, meaning that it visually is smaller and it's thinner, so it's easier to actually bite through. Because we also have to talk about bite strength. At 2 years old, we'll probably have weak jaw muscles. We probably are still not 100% coordinating our tongue and motor planning our lips. So the type of food texture matters in this situation. We're talking about like a hard, crunchy carrot. The thickness of the carrot matters. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does.
It's
Okay.
so multifactorial that we like got to go down the rabbit hole. But that's why it's so important to empower parents like yourself to say, oh, that's what's going on. And then we can kind of go down the rabbit hole and more effectively serve these kids at their level. So we have to go at the slowest person's pace.
Excellent. Thank you.
You got it, friend.
Jordan, thank you. That was such great information and just all over great information for us. And again, we only have Jordan for a couple more minutes. So if you have a really quick burning question, now would be the time. Otherwise, Jordan, wow, thank you so much for giving us your time today. And we have your information if we need to get in contact with you or any of our parents are seeking more support. But we just appreciate you and appreciate your time.
Awesome sauce. I love it. I'm happy to be here. And like I said, I just want to help more parents like myself. So I can't wait to do it again.
Yes, that's perfect. And one of the moms commented, great. Yes, thank you for great information. But Jordan, we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye, guys. Have a great one. Thank you so much for having me.